2023 business meeting of the Olympia City Council. For the record, we have a quorum this evening with Councilmember Payne and Councilmember Nguyen excused. Before we go to approval of the agenda, I just want to make a note that the Transportation Benefit District implementation outline has been delayed, and it will be put on a future agenda for action at a later date. With that, I need a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Need a second? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We do not have any special recognition, so we'll go straight to public comment. So public comment is a portion of the meeting where community members may address the City Council regarding items related to city business, including items on tonight's agenda. In order for the City Council to maintain impartiality and the appearance of fairness in upcoming matters, and to comply with the public disclosure law for political campaigns, speakers will not be permitted to make comments for the council in these two areas, where the public testimony may implicate a matter on which the City Council will be required to act in a quasi-judicial capacity, and where the speaker promotes or opposes a candidate for public or office. Individual comments are limited to 2 minutes or less, and in order to hear from as many people as possible during the 30 minutes set aside during public communication, the City Council will refrain from commenting on individual remarks until all public comment has been taken. The City Council will allow for additional public comment to be taken at the end of the meeting, at the end of our regular business items, for those who signed up at the beginning of the meeting and did not get an opportunity to speak during the allotted 30 minutes. So we have people in chambers that have signed up for public comment, and we have people that have signed up remotely. Altogether, we have close to 30 people signed up. So we will not be getting through the all the commenters in the first half hour that we've dedicated. So I have in the past focused on people in chambers first, because then they can go home or go back onto the rest of their evening. And then we go to remote commenters. So I'm going to do that this evening. I'm going to ask commenters if you're speaking on similar topics, that maybe you shorten your comments so we can allow for more people in that first 30 minutes. I will also call out your names in three people at a time. So you can stage yourself up by the podium if you're in chambers, so that we can get through as many people as quickly as possible without wasting any time between speakers. So there's a countdown clock in chambers that you will use. And then if we do get to any of the remote commenters, there'll be a timer on the screen. We will be asking you to finish your comments in that time. And if you continue on, we will have to mute your mic until the next speaker. So we are going to jump in here, and excuse me if I'm not pronouncing the names right. If I can't read them, I'll do my best. Maeve Johnson, Kay Nyberg, followed by Helena Vaught.
Here.
Where's the camera? Where are we looking towards?
Is that the camera?
If you look straight ahead, that's the camera.
Perfect.
You're looking right into the camera right now.
Awesome.
We can't hear the speaker
Hello? Can you hear me?
in chambers.
I'm speaking into the microphone.
I know it's weird because we're on the screen above you, but the camera that you want to look at
It's
is
over here.
straight in front of you. Yeah,
It's confusing. Can you hear me?
but I still can't hear. Can anyone on the screen hear?
No, the chamber's microphone is muted. Kelly or Susan, whoever's down there.
Oh, yeah. In the bottom left corner. Oh, that's me. That's all me.
And I will not start the 30 minutes until we hear from the first speaker. So we're not losing any time right now.
Hello? Hello? Check, check.
Oh, yes, now we can hear you.
Great.
All right, you can start.
Okay. Hello, my name is Maeve Johnson. I'm a community member. I live in Eastside Olympia. And I just want to come as a member of the community to express my support for the ceasefire resolution. I think we need to stand up as a community and do our part to end the Israeli apartheid occupation in Gaza and in the West Bank and in all of Palestine. I have seen the Olympia community come together on this. I think all the polling shows that the majority of Americans are at this point in support of a ceasefire. And I think it is important for the city council, if it wants to maintain its credibility, to publicly and firmly support a ceasefire and an end to U.S. support to Israel. And that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Kay Nyberg, followed by Helena Lunt, followed by Eva Leach.
Hi, I'm Kay. I'm a special ed teacher at Washington Middle School, and I am in support of a resolution by the City Council to call for a ceasefire in Israel's war in Gaza. As a special ed teacher, I think about the well-being of children, and in this particular instance, I have been reading some horrific numbers, and the latest numbers that I've been finding is that over 5,000 children have been killed by the Israeli occupation forces over the last 46 days, 5,000 plus kids. And thinking in particular about how many disabled young people there are in Gaza because of the occupation, it comes home to me how brutal this all is, because I know I know young people, I know just how much joy and what a miracle young people are, and to see them just ripped out of their families while they're sleeping in their apartments is just so shocking. And other cities have taken stances on similar issues, like many cities took a stance against the invasion of Iraq or other foreign policy matters, and I think it's an appropriate and relevant thing for a progressive city like Olympia to take a stance against an ongoing genocide. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Helena Lunt, followed by Eva Leach, followed by Kaz Bokun.
Hi, my name is Helena Lant. I've been a constituent of Olympia for 5 years, most of which I've spent working for the Thurston County Food Bank. As an advocate for the basic rights of all human beings, I'm here to join the voices urging City Council to sign onto the proposed resolution for a ceasefire. In my years of work for the food bank, I saw many City Council members volunteer to help put food on the tables of the people of Olympia. If I'm not mistaken, that's where I met several of you for the first time, including Councilman Gilman and Mayor Selby. Having served this community in depth, I've seen what the impacts of hunger and food insecurity can do to a human body. In addition to the endless siege and medical warfare on the people of Gaza, Palestinians are currently experiencing an emergency-level lack of food due to the militarized shutdown of trade corridors into Gaza. The World Food Program, a global humanitarian food aid organization, states as of November 16th that, quote, supplies of food and water are practically non-existent in Gaza, and only a fraction of what is needed is arriving through the borders. With winter fast approaching, unsafe and overcrowded shelters, and the lack of clean water, civilians are facing the immediate possibility of starvation. The food that has entered Gaza is only enough to meet 7% of the people's daily minimum caloric needs, end quote. To put this in context, this is roughly the equivalent to splitting this bag of chips between you and your spouse every day. As you may know, a cholera outbreak has also taken place in the aftermath of the water shortage. I've seen City Council vote time and time again in favor of expanding food access to the people of Olympia, and I ask that you keep this ethic in mind as you consider signing onto this resolution. Starvation is a slow and brutal way to die, and hundreds of Palestinians are facing this fate currently. Thank you for your time, and I hope you each follow what's in your heart.
Thank you. Next, we have Eva Leach, followed by Kaz V, followed by Rebecca Iriv.
Hello, my name's Eva Leach. I live in Olympia, Washington. I want to talk about just a few of the war crimes committed by Israel in the past month and a half against the Palestinian people. Keep in mind that 2 minutes is not enough time to list them all. Since October 7th, Israel has bombed 39 health facilities, including 13 hospitals, 5 refugee camps, 76 mosques, 3 churches, over 250 schools, 23,000 residential units, 200 medical workers, at least 50 journalists have been killed, and multiple humanitarian aid convoys have been bombed. These are war crimes. In over a month, Israel has not been able to offer a single piece of evidence that any of the hospitals or refugee camps are Hamas bases, and has publicly admitted multiple times to falsifying evidence of Hamas activity. All the while, news outlets continue to spread misinformation to the American people, glossing over these confessions of guilt from Israeli officials. Israel has displaced nearly 2 million people, many thousands of whom are injured to the point of immobility in the past month, usually with only an hour's notice before the bombing begins. These are war crimes. Israel has intentionally bombed resources such as food, water, fuel, and electricity, and has actively prevented nearly all aid from going into the Gaza Strip to provide life-saving care. These are war crimes. Israel has used white phosphorus bombs multiple times on Palestinians in Gaza. This is a war crime. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just a point of, I don't know what it's a point of, but we can't see the timer on Zoom that's in the room. So I would just ask if somebody can let me know. And we also can't see the lights because the names are across the bottom. We can't see the colored lights. So if somebody runs long, I'm going to have somebody else tell me because I can't tell from here. Thank you. Next, I have Kaz V, followed by Rebecca Iriv, followed by Sky Costello.
Hey, my name's Kaz. Just wanted to say that the evidence that was presented by Eva's statement is just a very small amount of evidence that signals violations of the 4th Geneva Conventions, Articles 18, 20, 23, 49, 53, 55, 56, the Geneva Convention Protocol 1 of 1977, Articles 12, 15, 35, 40, 51, 52, 53, 54, 73, 75, 77, and 79, the Certain Conventional Weapons Protocol 3, and the Genocide Convention, Article 3. Councilmember Cooper, as a veteran in the U.S. Army, I'm sure that you have extensive knowledge of international law protocols and can corroborate the statements that we've made today. I also remember you saying last week that it feels difficult to have an opinion on the matter because this is a complicated geopolitical issue. I want to encourage you and the rest of the council to see that war crimes are not complicated to stand against. Mass murder of civilians is not complicated to stand against. Mass bombing of essential infrastructure is not complicated to stand against. Forced displacement of millions is not complicated to stand against. The murder of thousands of babies, children, mothers, and fathers is not complicated to stand against. And if somebody is telling you that these things are too complicated to have an opinion on, they are manipulating your hearts, your ethics, and your humanity. You've had a resolution emailed to you, I believe it was yesterday afternoon. There are hundreds and hundreds of community members that are in support of this resolution, and I hope that you consider passing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Rebecca Iriv, followed by Sky Costello.
My name is Rebecca Iriv. I am queer, disabled, and a Jewish clergy, a Kohenet. I grew up in a Zionist family and a deeply anti-Semitic town in South Jersey. Pennies were thrown at me, a swastika was drawn on my chair, and there were openly skinhead Nazis in my public school. I moved to Olympia in 1999 and found a beloved Jewish queer community and was educated by an Israeli professor about the Israeli occupation of Palestine. Our central prayer in Judaism is called the Shema. The prayer essentially translates as, listen, God is one. The essence of Judaism teaches us we are all one collective being. Another teaching of Judaism tells us that within each person is an entire universe, so to kill someone is to destroy an entire world. Our cousins, those of Muslim faith, have a similar teaching. This is only one of many teachings that bond us together. For many decades before 1948, Jews, Muslims, and Christians lived in harmony together in the land of Palestine. After the Holocaust, the greatest single wounding to the Jewish people in our history, the powers that be, European powers and the US, used the opportunity to support an extremely traumatized people to colonize Palestine and ethnically cleanse Palestinians. They needed a stronghold in the Middle East. Zionism was originally brought to popularity by Balfour in the UK decades before as an anti-Semitic solution to dealing with Europe's Jewish problem. I am under no illusion Israel was ever for the Jews or safe for the Jews. It's the opposite. There has been a strategic media campaign to manipulate us into believing Jewish safety is dependent on the state of Israel. The only thing dependent on the state of Israel is capitalism and militarism. That's why the US and other European countries support it. Jewish safety lies in solidarity with other oppressed people. Zionism is not Judaism. Zionism is colonialism. I support the county to adopt this resolution. It is not anti-Semitic.
Thank you. Next, I have Mike Hubbard, followed by Peter Lewis, followed by Karina Greenlee. I'm sorry, Sky Costello's next, followed by Mike Hubbard. Okay.
Okay, my name is Sky Costello. I'm here to ask the city council members to take the moral stand of our generation and support the resolution for ceasefire. Growing up, we were taught that the greatest man-made catastrophe in human history was the Holocaust. I grew up with my grandmother telling me stories of how as a small girl, she hid under a table and watched as her entire family was taken away to the camps. She was the only one in her bloodline who survived the Holocaust. We grew up asking ourselves how this could have happened, how anyone could see the massacres, see countless Jewish and Roma communities burnt to the ground and do nothing, how people could have actively chosen to commit those crimes against humanity, how millions chose to support them. The answer is complicated, but I think we as Americans have more clarity in this very historical moment than at perhaps any point since the end of the Great War. We are seeing another genocide happening before our very eyes. As of a few days ago, 900 Palestinian bloodlines have been wiped out by Israeli bombings since October 7th. The number now is undoubtedly higher. Nearly every scholar of genocide in the world has named what Israel is doing to Palestine for what it is, genocide. Do not let Zionist weaponization of the trauma of the Holocaust blind you to that reality. Hamas does not represent Palestinians in Palestine. Israel knows that the hospitals, schools, water treatment facilities, refugee camps, bakeries, and countless other civilian facilities they have bombed in Gaza and now in the West Bank, where there are no Hamas operations, are not legitimate military targets. Collective punishment is a war crime. This is a genocide, not an anti-terrorism campaign. Throughout human history, the area now known as Palestine has been an ethnically and religiously diverse part of the world. What anti-Zionists are fighting for is a world where Jews, Muslims, and Christians of all ethnicities can live together as equals in Palestine. Israel's expansion of their genocide to even the West Bank, where there are no Hamas operations, has made it beyond clear that they're not that part. Never again means no more genocide. Never again for anyone. Please support this resolution for ceasefire.
Thank you. Next, I have Mike Hubbard, followed by Peter Lewis, followed by Karina Greenlee.
Yeah, I'm Mike Hubbard, and I'm a retired actuary and mathematician. And I had the good fortune to teach for a year and a half in Egypt in '99 and 2000, and learned a lot from my students at Cairo University. I also, I want to urge you to support, as a minimum, the ceasefire, an immediate ceasefire, and some sort of legislation to make the U.S. to provide some accountability for the use of U.S. weapons that are sold to Israel. And what I really want to do is I want to give you a little bit of context. I was in the West Bank in 2006, October, November. and spent a week in Hebron. Hebron, or Al-Khalil, is a city in the West Bank and home of the Abrahami Mosque. And at that mosque, 29 Palestinians were murdered in cold blood by an American Jew from Brooklyn. Anyway, I was in Hebron, and I was tasked with protecting a Palestinian home there. And me and my British colleagues were attacked by 2 settlers. They knocked him off a rock wall, and he suffered a laceration of his scalp. And we filmed the whole thing. But anyway, this was typical of settler behavior, and we need to protect the Palestinians in the West Bank from settlers and the army. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Next, we have Peter Lewis, followed by Karina Greenlee, followed by Jenica Martinez.
Hello, my name is Peter Lewis. I'm 17 years old, and I'm here to call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. The majority of Americans support a ceasefire, and yet almost no elected officials have come out in agreement. What is your job? To be so neutral as to call for nothing, do nothing, and be perfectly re-electable? Or to listen to constituents and the millions of people around the world screaming for this atrocity to end? You cannot hide behind thin paper walls and cloud the issue by talking about terrorism or condemning Hamas while simply standing by while genocide is committed against innocent civilians. It is not right. And as the City Council of Olympia, it is your duty to listen and do everything in your power to stop this now. Call for a ceasefire. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Karina Greenlee, followed by Jenica Martinez, followed by Elsie Sable.
My name is Karina Greenlee, and I'm 19 years old. 13,000 Palestinians have been murdered since October 7th. When will it be enough for you to act? Councilmember Payne, I know you're not here right now, but I hope you hear this later. I had a great deal of respect for you, and I could not believe when your first response to our calls last week for a ceasefire was, "This is Hamas's fault." How many people have to die before all of you realize that one terrorist attack, no matter how atrocious, does not justify the slaughter of an entire population whose only crime is a shared nationality with a terrorist organization? If this was how the world operated, none of us would be alive. Why are the Palestinian people the exception to our common understanding that collective punishment is senseless violence? Do each of you refuse to condemn Israel and call for a ceasefire because you genuinely believe that the Palestinian people deserve this? Or is it cowardice? Are you so afraid to damage your political image by standing up against true injustice? Tonight, I want each of you to look up direct footage from Palestine. I want you to watch a video of tiny children covered in horrible burns and shaking with shock, or scroll through images of entire families killed under the rubble of their homes. I want you to see what happens to real people when politicians turn their backs to protect their political image. Enough is enough. Condemn Israel. Call for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza.
Next, I have Elsie Sable, followed by Peyton Steve, followed by Shade Osuna.
Hello, my name is Jenica Martinez, and I was here last week, and I was wondering about the Bill 3103. It seemed like a lot of people didn't know what that was, myself included, so I looked it up. And I'm just going to read it from the site, from the House site here. It's Defending the Human Rights of Palestinian Children and Families Living Under Israeli Military Occupation Act to prohibit Israel from using U.S. taxpayer dollars on the military detention, abuse, or ill treatment of Palestinian children in Israeli military detention, to support the seizure and destruction of Palestinian property and homes in violation of international humanitarian law, or on any support or assistance for Israel's unilateral annexation of Palestinian territory in violation of international humanitarian law. Yeah, it says also Israel is a U.S. ally and has been for the past 25 years. And yeah, last week I also, this is to Mayor-elect, which is not here. Yeah, last week, Mayor-elect, you said that this is Hamas's fault. I think that we're at fault by using our U.S. taxpayers' money, and it should be on your conscience as a U.S. representative that has allowed this to continue, and by not using your power to stand on the side of putting an end to yet another genocide, more killings of oppressed people in the streets while the world watches on the sidelines. This is why we're here, to stand up for what we believe in, and bombing and caged people is not what we're in favor of. Let's take a moment to think about when we're younger, learning about the Holocaust, and thinking, no freaking ways that can happen when we're here. But it's happening now. So don't go down in history as another representative person of power who did nothing, stuck in indecision. Ceasefire.
Thank you. Next, I have Elsie Sable, followed by Peyton Steve.
Okay. Hello, my name is Elsie Sable. I'm 18 years old, and I've lived in Olympia for those 18 years. I'd like to address what the city council members said last week in regards to a ceasefire in Gaza. This is not complicated. I know that as an elected official, you're used to everything being complicated with so many different ideas and opinions. But what is happening now is not hard to understand. People are being murdered. They're being bombed in their homes. They're being starved and deprived of clean water. The Israeli government designates safe routes for refugees and then kills those trying to escape. I believe it is your duty, not as council members or elected officials, but as human beings with a heart, to recognize the suffering of others and try to stop it. Over 13,000 people have been killed so far. I want you to take a moment and imagine yourself. Imagine all of the ambitions and experiences and loved ones you've had in your life. It's a lot, isn't it? Every single person who has been killed in Palestine was just like that. They're complicated human beings who feel pain and hurt and joy. Now, imagine you were suffocating, buried under the rubble of your house, hoping that against all odds, your family somehow survived. And now multiply that feeling by 13,000. It's unimaginable. If you stand against murder, I'll repeat that. If you think innocent civilians should not be murdered, please sign on to the resolution and show that our city doesn't condone senseless violence. Not in Palestine, not anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Shade Osuna, followed by Emily Antoon Walsh.
Hi, I'm Peyton Stever. I live downtown, and I wanted to speak briefly in support of the City of Olympia passing a resolution in support of a ceasefire and the peaceful of Gaza. Olympia has a history of association with people of Gaza dating back to the tragic death of Rachel Corrie. Since then, there has been a movement in Olympia to become a sister city of Rafah, unfortunately never made official. There's been an effort to preserve that downtown in the mural that you can go visit. And our own Olympia Food Co-op has been a leader in the boycott, divest, and sanction movement. This history was why it's uniquely important that Olympia pass a resolution. Not only will it be a stand for justice, but it will also be a message to the people of Gaza who are facing violence and displacement that we have not forgotten them. Olympia has chosen to be a sanctuary city and a city of peace, and it's been that way for many decades. Rafah has been forced to become a sanctuary by events. We should live up to the commitments we made in the past. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I have Shade Osuna, followed by Emily Antoon Walsh.
Hello, my name is Shade. I don't have much to add that hasn't already been said, but I support a ceasefire in Gaza and Palestinian freedom and survival at all times. There can be no military solution to the genocide that's currently ongoing, and so we're asking for you as politicians to support a political answer. Thank you.
Last for in chambers, we have Emily Antoon Walsh.
Hello, my name is Dr. Emily Antoine Walsh. I'm a medical doctor and I'm a pediatrician. We just came through a pandemic in which some of the first to die were medical professionals who cared for people. I work in a hospital. I go to deliveries. I care for newborns in the moment they're born, as well as children with asthma, teenagers in crisis. I often work nights. I come out of the hospital, and every time I come out of the hospital now, I come out of it to news of hospitals being attacked and children being killed. One child has been killed every 10 minutes. This is an increase in the rate of death from some weeks ago in which it was one child every 15 minutes. I'm going to read you numbers that are now outdated. It's 6,000 children now. The last number I have of the missing under the rubble were 1,700 children. I think it's actually more like 3,000 or 4,000 who are missing. These are undercounts. These do not include the children who have died of dehydration and water shut off to 2.3 million people. It does not include preventable diseases. Cancer treatments were stopped. How do you get insulin if your child has DKA? I know that parents have watched their children die of DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis. I have seen videos in the past few weeks of children in a state of dehydration that I've read about in textbooks. I have never seen in real life. Never seen in real life. Now I've seen it. Another way that we can think about this is the mode age group. The age most represented among the dead in Gaza is 5-year-olds. I have a kindergartner. So I have emailed all of you. I've included a list of documents including city councils that have called for ceasefire and references to call for ceasefire. If you don't like this resolution, pick another one and please pass it because we have to say something. I have lived in Israel. I have worked in Israel. I can attest to the fact that it is an apartheid system, and I could talk endlessly about that, but I have 10 seconds left. So this is the context in which we have to understand the violence against Palestinian children. The El Rantisi Hospital for Children was bombed. The staff were forced out at gunpoint, leaving children in their beds. The cancer center, the only cancer center in Gaza for children, was bombed. These are all intentional. Ceasefire now.
Thank you. I want to remind people as well, if you didn't have time to complete your statements, you can email the city council. Now we're going to go to remote. We only have 3 minutes left, so I'll probably try to get through 2 people that were remote. I'm going to start with Tila Hogel, followed by Joanne Freeman.
Tiva does not seem to be signed in, and neither does Joanne.
Okay. Then I'm going to go to Desiree Tolliver.
Desiree's traveling.
After Desiree, we'll have William Jernigan.
Is it okay if I start now?
Yes.
I just didn't know. Sorry, I don't see a timer on here, so I didn't know if there was one that was going to pop up.
Oh, yeah, there's blue sky. There it is.
Okay, thank you. So I want to say to the Olympians who showed up, it is amazing, it is inspirational, and I've always said that love is an action word, and each speaker here is showing action. Action to a performer is when it's time to cue the tears. Every representative who is on city council is aware of everything that is happening, and if they—
Thank you very much for that. But we will definitely, if you can hang with us, we'll come back to you at 6A, which is the end of our business meeting. All right, we're going to go on to tonight's consent calendar adoption. I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have one pull, or item 4B. Any other items? All right, so pulling item 4B, which is approval of resolution ratifying and confirming authorization of acceptance of phase 1 of the American-Made Buildings Upgrade Prize. So I have our climate program manager, Pamela Braff, in the room, and she's going to speak to number one, what a prize is, and what this the intention of this money.
Good evening, Council. Pamela Braff, Director of Climate Programs. Yes, the first thing, what is a prize? It's very different from the way that we typically receive funding. A prize is not a grant. It is funding. Really, it's an award for work that's already been done as opposed to work that we're preparing to do. And so in this case, the U.S. Department of Energy developed the Buildings Upgrade Prize as a capacity building prize focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions in existing buildings through energy efficiency and electrification. In phase one, this is going to be a multi-phase program. Phase one, Buildings Up awarded over $22 million in cash prizes, as well as technical assistance to teams who submitted concept proposals. So the prize is for the concept proposal that we worked to develop. The City of Olympia is one of 45 teams who was awarded one of these Buildings Upgrade prizes. The prize is a one-time disbursement of cash awarded by Department of Energy on the merit of the work that was already completed. In this case, it was our concept proposal, and we worked with Olympia Community Solar on this. Only phase one winners are invited to then compete in future phases of the prize. So what this does is it also sets us up to be able to continue to receive more funding in future phases. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what our concept proposal was. And again, the prize is not saying that this is the work that we're going to do. It's a prize for the work that we did to develop this concept as a way to improve energy efficiency and resilience and decarbonize rental housing in Olympia. So our concept proposal was to develop what we're calling the Energize Olympia Rental Navigator, and it was building off of the success of our Energize Olympia program. And the Navigator would provide guidance and outreach and technical support to catalyze widespread building electrification retrofits for affordable housing, specifically affordable rental housing in Olympia. And the idea was to develop a program that would support tenants and property owners in utilizing the billions of dollars of funding that are coming through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act and all of these new programs that are being developed. The idea for the Navigator would be to develop a program that works directly with landlords and works directly with tenants to develop actionable building decarbonization and resilience upgrade plans, and then provide the ongoing support to help them implement those plans. And it's really focused on reducing friction, eliminating barriers, making it easier to do something that's already pretty challenging. And we really wanted to find a way to help overcome what happens when there's funding available but you don't know how to access it. What happens when there's funding available but you don't know where to start, or you have a gap, or you just need that little bit of support to get started and see it through to the end. That's what this concept proposal was for. And so, we know these type of programs have a lot of different potential benefits: reduced energy bills, improved indoor air quality, comfort, cooling, as well as energy independence and resilience to electric grid disruptions. So a lot of benefits for really both landlords and also the tenants of those buildings. And it's particularly important for rental housing because we know that we have average national data that tells us that rental housing is less energy efficient than owner-occupied housing, and that renters spend more of their income on their energy bills than owner-occupied housing. And so programs focused on affordable rental housing have a lot of capacity to improve the condition of that housing for its tenants. So the city has been awarded a $350,000 cash prize. That's our portion of this prize. The other piece of it is $50,000 for Olympia Community Solar. And then we would receive 140 hours of technical assistance to then develop a pilot implementation plan for a program that would be similar to what we've envisioned here. And so before you this evening, you have a resolution that ratifies and confirms the authorization and signature by the city manager to accept that $350,000 prize awarded for phase one of the American-made Buildings Upgrade Prize.
Thank you, Dr. Bruff. That was very informative, and I wanted to bring this forward for our community to understand that this is building on the work that you've been doing already for us. And so it's really, really an honor to have been trusted, 45 in the nation, to have gotten this money, and so congratulations. And I just had a question about what part of that can you describe the Rental Navigator program, and is that a new FTE, or is that something that you have the capacity within your current department to lead?
So the Rental Navigator, as we've envisioned it, is a partnership between the climate programs and the housing programs at the City of Olympia. exactly what form it takes or what specifically how it runs is something that we would be developing during the next phase of work, which is developing the pilot implementation plan. It could take shape in a lot of different ways. One of the ways might be connecting with the rental registry, but if there's no rental registry, there are other ways that we can stand this program up to make it run.
I guess this leads to another question I had. I believe that any housing that receives a subsidy, we already have a record of where those units are, correct?
I would have to.
Oh, that might be a question for later. Yeah. So I guess my question is leading to more of a statement that I really, my wish, hopefully it would be the wish of everybody, would be for these $350,000 to really be focused on energy upgrades for the affordable housing that we already know about, and we have a relationship, and they're already vetted as far as we know that that's where the greatest need is. And so that's just my preference for these dollars going forward. I know that there's really a lot of flexibility, which is also pretty cool. So anybody else have any other questions? Councilmember Parsley?
The use of these funds, is there an intention? I know, unlike a grant, a prize is not necessarily strings attached. Is there an intention that these funds will be used as a mechanism to get phase 2 going?
Yes, so the goal is to use these funds to help us continue through the different phases of they called it a co-opetition, where they're cooperating with all of the teams. They want the teams cooperating with each other. And so there's no select down during each of the subsequent phases. So if we meet the requirements of each phase and showing progress in developing our concept proposal, then it's likely that we'll continue to win future prize funding, pending funding availability from DOE for future rounds of this. But yeah, the intent would be to develop a program that's aligned with the objectives of the proposal that we submitted. One of the pieces of that, though, was that there's a lot of federal funding and state funding becoming available for energy upgrades, and our $350,000 award will not go very far in doing upgrades. And so the way we envisioned it is that we provide that technical support and the connection to access those other federal funds, and really filling in some gap funding where it's necessary, and providing kind of that administrative piece so to help folks connect with all of the funding that's already out there or will soon be available.
Yeah, the president had a press conference this morning announcing, I forget how many more $1 billion he's going to allocate towards energy upgrades for affordability for low-income families. So it's good news. Anything else? All right. So we have a motion and a second to adopt tonight's consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Moving
Mayor,
on.
point of order.
Sure.
I just had a question. Are we going to come back and respond to public comment after the later session? Because I feel like we had some new folks tonight, and in a large number for us, that it would be good to just take a moment to acknowledge what they came to say.
Okay, so
I want to make sure we're going to provide space for that. And
absolutely.
I won't take us that way.
Yeah, it's been so long, like I said, since we've had more commenters and we had time in the very beginning of the meeting. What we've done in the past to make it kind of like, so you get the full picture, is we've made responses or questions for staff after we've completed all of the public comment. I can entertain if there's desire here to make some comments at this point, because by the time we get to the second phase of public comment, it'll be quite late tonight. So, Councilmember Nguyen?
Maybe we could refrain from speaking on item 6A and address the rest of the commenters.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, like that. So if anybody wants to respond to our public commenters tonight, exempting item 6A, because we're going to be discussing that in depth later on tonight, that's great. So anybody want to go?
No, you can go first.
Councilmember Nguyen?
So since we were not touching item 6A at the moment, I really appreciate the folks that have come here, some that have come here for the first time, to speak about the tragedy that's happening in Gaza right now. And also want to recognize that it's a really big thing to do to spend your night this way and to come and speak in public comment and with all of these people here with a dais that's elevated in front of you, and it takes for some a different sort of comfortability to do that. And so I just really want to appreciate that. There's so many emotions when you're talking about this. There's all of the ones that are very sort of self-centered, like, wait, what? Of course I care about people. We're sitting here, we're spending our night this way too. Like, of course we're trying to, you hear that the rental housing or possible rental registry is before us tonight, and we got a lot of people that are feeling a way about that. There's all these different things to go through. We have a report out, just a small one about climate. That's a big deal. And so we have all these things before us that impact Olympians here right now and that we are trying to work on. And then there's all of the rest of the world, right? There's all of those big things that are happening. And so I do appreciate you taking the time. And for some, I think Emily has left, but coming back again to say, hey, you should really say something about this. You should do something, even though we are a small local government that for the most part is focused on the issues in front of us that are before Olympians now. But what we're hearing tonight, I think, from Olympians is that whatever power we do have, whatever privilege we do hold, we should move that upward. I really appreciate when folks come with possible solutions, with things, with suggestions at least to look at. So I will, and I feel like my council mates will too, but I'll let them speak for themselves. But look at some past resolutions. I told Emily I was going to do that last week. I still intend to continue. And then also, I heard that possible support for HR 3101, and then another one for HR 786. Really, really appreciate that, and then the resolution overall. I'm not sure what it will look like, but I will work with my colleagues to hopefully form. We don't do things alone. We do things together. Some sort of responses and figure out what makes sense for our city and how we can push that pressure upward, like you were saying. So. Yeah, it's your comments. I think there was like at least 10 of you. Your comments and the variety of things that you said really, it reminds us to take a moment from business as usual and recognize the humanity. And I saw a lot of kind of tearing up around the room and a lot of heartfelt thoughts. And so while some of it was hard to hear, things like having a spine and stuff, we got to kind of like look through that and not get defensive, though it can be hard sometimes, and realize that, maybe we're not a big federal government. We don't really play in international waters too much, but maybe there's something we can do. So I appreciate these smart suggestions brought forward, and I'll explore them. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Cooper, followed by Councilmember Parsley, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Gilman.
Thank you, Mayor Selby. I really appreciate us going back. For me, it's good to have this conversation before we move into our agenda, just because it can give us the headspace. I think it's really important, and I wanted to make sure that these folks, 10 of them exactly, felt heard. It's a big number actually for us to have talking about one topic, not reading the same message over and over again, and focus on the global humanity and how we can come together as human beings, I think is what I heard. And the hard part about this is all of the politics and long-term history and like trying to clear the picture of what you want to say while doing right by friends and family who are on all sides of the issue. I think everybody agrees that no one should be dying though, and especially the innocent. And so how can we create a statement that brings our equity and our commitment to peace in the Olympia way to the table? I would love to be a part of something like that.
All right, thank you. Next, Councilmember Parsley, followed by Mayor Pro Tem Gilman.
I have to, thank Councilmember Cooper and the mayor for letting us address this, because it is emotional. You can't read the news without feeling the impact. And when I belong to some Physicians Without Borders, And hearing that they're doing surgery without anesthesia just made me, as a medical professional, sick to my stomach. There's a lot of death going on, and I have no problem with working with my council mates, looking through the resolutions that have been put out there that allow us to match our values as a city and put forward a ceasefire resolution. It makes sense to me, but I also think we need to look at what we can do. And as Councilmember Nguyen said, from our little hamlet, push something upward. But absolutely.
Thank you. And last I have Councilmember Gilman, or Mayor Pro Tem Gilman.
I'll take either one. First, I appreciated Michael Cade coming in to elevate another partnership that we've had with the Scale Up and the other small business, both incubating and helping people grow programs over the last several years. I'm really proud of that, and I think that's part of our ability to be resilient through the pandemic with the businesses downtown. So I wanted to appreciate that. Thank you to the folks who spoke for peace and a ceasefire. That the idea that we should use council power to take the issue of peace to the top, I think, makes sense. And we try to be judicious about how often we weigh in on issues that are way beyond the city. But I think it's the right time to join the congressional staffers and the State Department employees who both have recently offered dissenting letters calling for an immediate ceasefire. And I also would be proud to send to Cori Bush a letter saying that we support her House Resolution 786 and want her and her co-sponsors to have traction. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so I think we're ready to move on now. We've done consent count. What? Oh, you are, okay, I'm so sorry. Councilmember Payne.
Yes, so that's my bad, Madam Mayor. I initially said that I would not speak this evening, but nevertheless, I am going to because I feel like there is a very important voice that is missing in the room in this conversation. As the only Jewish person on this council, the day after, on October 8th, I saw in our community that our community was standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people instantly. So my question is, how much of this is about the state of Israel's response? I did not see any people in our chambers demanding that the hostages that Hamas still has be returned. I am witnessing people in this chamber tonight blaming members of the city council for not acting on a resolution that would essentially be one of many that I'm not sure would move the needle in one direction or another, because we are talking about geopolitical, complicated matters. And frankly, it is Hamas's fault that we are here. And I feel that it needs to be said publicly. I understand that the state of Israel has a right-wing government that is not in line with the city of Olympia's values. And in fact, they're not even in line with the majority of American Jews or Jews around the world. But I feel that we conflate these conversations. And frankly, I feel that we need to not do that. We are falling prey to the intentions of this terrorist organization that wants us to conflate these issues and to join them in their efforts to hate the state of Israel. And it is very difficult to watch. I see it happening. And there was a ceasefire on October 6th, and Hamas broke it. And so my question is, when is, if we call for a ceasefire, when is the ceasefire going to be broken again? In 10 years, 20 years? How much longer? That being said, I do recognize that there is horrible violence. And in fact, I would argue that Hamas knew that there would be. They they intentionally attacked when they had a right-wing conservative as their leader. And that should tell you something. They knew that Israel would respond with force. And so I want to be the person on this dais and in this room to offer another voice, that we also have a very active Jewish community here who is listening to all of these words tonight, begging for somebody to recognize how this all started, where this came from, and frankly, for somebody to speak up about the hostages that we want back. And so with that being said, I am happy to explore and consider language around what a potential resolution could look like. Obviously, we know that civilian casualties on any side is always something that should be condemned, but it is much more complicated, and I will not simply allow us to dismiss that simply for the sake of trying to make it seem like we need to take a specific side because that's just what we need to do in America is fall on a binary scale. It is much more complicated. It is, and we should approach it as such. And so I just want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for and the council for giving me the space and the time to process this. And I will be happy to work with all of you on what a potential resolution could look like. Thank you.
So I have to respond to our mayor-elect, Payne. That took so much courage. And that is a voice that we're not hearing. And we need to hear all voices. So I thank you for coming, but I also thank you for representing an unrepresented group up here in many ways. And just gratitude. Thank you. Councilmember Cooper.
Yeah, I want to echo that because it needs to be heard, and honestly, why I was cagey about where I am, because I don't know where I am, because it's really hard to understand geopolitical issues other than I know, people should be in their homes sleeping at night and not have danger of violence, and so on all sides of the conversation. So I'd love to partner with you and maybe some of another council member and our staff to work on how to get it right. I love that term, mayor-elect, as well, so I just want to say that out loud again.
I had to get that in there. Councilmember Partially, and then we're going to need to move on.
Thank you, Mayor-elect. I appreciate that. And when I said that a ceasefire should exist within our values are not to support hate, whether it be anti-Semitism or Islamophobia. Sorry, had trouble saying that. I absolutely agree the language should be carefully crafted. I'm for ceasefire and I'm for peace. That is what I'm for, okay? And I agree with Mayor-elect Payne.
Thank you, Councilmember Nguyen.
Let's figure out how to say all of that, okay? We don't want people to die. We don't want there to be anti-Semitism. We don't want them to be Islamophobia. We will figure it out. There's a lot of emotions, and this is a room of a lot of emotions. It sways very sad to very joyful, and I also, while I'm proud of everyone that's spoken up tonight, even in opposition of the rental registry. It is, but obviously there's a lot of thoughts on this day, so let's get together and figure out what we're gonna say. Thanks.
All right, we good to move on? All right, we have 3 public hearings this evening and different sign-up sheets for all of those. Most of them are going to be in person, I believe. So we're just going to tee up item 5A, and that is a public hearing on a proposed designation of certain additional residential areas for the purposes of the multifamily tax exemption. And I've got Darian Lightfoot, our Director of Housing and Homeless Response, to explain what we are going to be opening a hearing about.
Hello, my name is Darian Lightfoot, Director of Housing and Homeless Response. And tonight I will be giving a presentation on the proposed changes to the multifamily tax exemption program. And kicking off the public hearing, I want to talk about that tonight is primarily for the boundaries. That is how our ordinance is set up, is that it is triggered through for a public hearing when we're looking to adjust the boundaries of the multifamily tax exemption. However, I will be going over all of the changes to the program, so folks in the public hearing can speak to everything, and those will be taken into consideration and brought to council on December 12th for a further discussion at another business item. So here we go.
Magic. Is it on?
It's on.
You need to cast a spell on it.
Try this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Good old-fashioned mouth. How's that work, Kelly? Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Cool. Great start.
So you know what? It's doing closed captioned. Is that what you want?
Wow. Sure. Did I do that? Did I turn this on?
I don't know what you did.
Yes, you did. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to, are they going to be distracting? Doesn't matter. Okay. So first, I'm going to talk about the history and the intent of the multifamily tax exemption, the state of housing, the program recommendations, and then next steps of the MFT. Okay. So the multifamily tax exemption is a statewide exemption that was adopted in 1995. It started as a 10-year exemption and didn't have any affordability associated with it. It was just a 10-year exemption with a goal to incentivize density in urban centers. And in the early 90s is when the US really started to see a decline in our housing productions. For the past 3 decades, we've started to know a deep decrease, but it was in the early 90s when the state recognized that housing production is not keeping up with population growth. So an exemption was